If the greatest traitor in American history was once a hero celebrated on par with Washington, then what turned him into a name cursed for over 2 centuries? Benedict Arnold was not born to betray. In the early days of the American Revolution, he was a soldier, brave, brilliant, and so formidable that many comrades called him the soul of liberty. From the siege of Quebec to the legendary victory at Saratoga, Arnold was not just present, he was the game changer. Yet history does not remember him for his courage. It remembers him for a name forever tied to treason. Born in 1741 in Connecticut, Arnold grew up in a family that had once prospered, but later fell into ruin. Poverty, pride, and a deep sense of honor forged a complex character, ambitious yet vulnerable, courageous yet headstrong. When war broke out, he was among the first to charge into battle. Early American records praised him as a model soldier. But cracks began to show, not on the battlefield, but behind the political curtain of the fledgling continent. Records from the Continental Congress show that Arnold used his own funds to supply his troops, providing ammunition, food, and even boats to cross rivers. Yet instead of gratitude, he faced accusations of corruption, was ignored by Congress, and even demoted without clear reason. British historian Sir George Otto Trevelyan described the harsh reward system of that era, a nation born in flames, yet burning those who bore the torches. When comparing official U.S. archives with contemporary documents from France and Spain, America's allies at the time, a paradox emerges. While French officers described Arnold as one of the bravest warriors, at home, his image began to fade, distorted by rumors and political maneuvering. A turning point came in 1758, when Arnold was seriously wounded at Saratoga, a battle that George Washington once called a great turning point of the Revolution. Yet instead of being honored, Arnold was sidelined. A wave of vague investigations and accusations drove him into deep disillusionment. Did Arnold betray from money, or was it because he felt betrayed first? A folktale from Pennsylvania tells of a haunting detail that on a winter night, Benedict Arnold silently burned all correspondence from Congress and wept in silence. This story is absent from official records, yet passed down through generations like a nameless ache. Could it be that even the people, the first to brand him traitor, carried a quiet unease? In 1779, Arnold married Peggy Shippen, a young woman from a wealthy Loyalist family. Many American historians see this as the turning point toward his betrayal. But European records paint a different picture. Peggy was not merely a side character, but a key link in the intelligence exchanges between both sides. In her secret letters to Lieutenant John Andre, a British spy, Benedict Arnold's name first appeared as part of a defection plot. Truth or fabrication? Few can say with certainty. But what is clear is this: history had begun to shift. Benedict Arnold, once hailed as a great son of liberty, was stepping into the darkest chapter of his life.
In the shadows of congressional chambers rife with schemes and envy, Benedict Arnold began to retreat from the light. But he did not vanish. He merely changed stages. And on this new stage, no longer filled with trenches or battle lines, were secret letters, clandestine meetings, and bargains trading lives for legacy. At the time, Arnold held command at West Point, a crucial strategic fort that controlled the Hudson River. If West Point were to fall into British hands, the American Revolution would almost certainly collapse, and it was there that he began negotiating with the enemy. Through his wife, Peggy Shippen, who had close ties to British aristocracy, Arnold established contact with Lieutenant John Andre, a cunning British royal spy. In letters written with invisible ink and cryptic ciphers, Arnold offered to surrender West Point in exchange for a large sum of money and a high rank in the British Army. History often paints this as an act of blatant treason, but if one revisits overlooked documents in the Pennsylvania archives and Arnold's personal correspondence, a different image emerges. He was not merely seeking wealth. He wrote, "I have fought for a country that forgets its champions. I choose a country that values talent." Perhaps for Arnold, switching sides was not betrayal, but a transfer of honor from a fledgling republic that slighted him to an empire that kept its word. In September 1780, the plan was nearly complete, but fate intervened. John Andre, on his way back, was captured by American militia. On him were hand-drawn documents penned by Arnold, enough to expose the treason. George Washington, upon receiving the news, was said to be stunned into silence. In Alexander Hamilton's memoirs, Washington's right-hand man, there is a line, "We sat like statues. A hollow silence fell upon us, as if none of us wished to believe that name." Warned in time by his wife, Arnold escaped to a British ship. Andre was not so fortunate. He was executed by hanging, a tragic end for an officer admired by both sides as honorable. Many contemporary records, even from the enemy, described John Andre as the kindest of all spies. Some even claim George Washington wept in silence while signing his execution order. And what of Arnold, the man behind it all? Britain received Benedict Arnold as a general. He was made a brigadier general, granted financial support, and lived in luxurious homes in London and Canada. Yet wherever he went, he was never truly accepted. The British admired his military skill, but doubted his loyalty. Americans reviled him as a soul seller. British records even state that the aristocracy dubbed him the two-headed dog. In a rare public appearance in London, Arnold was booed by a crowd and pelted with tomatoes. A boy asked his father, "Who is that?" And the man replied, without whispering, "The one who betrayed two nations and still has no country to call his own." But was Arnold truly a traitor, or simply a soldier caught in the whirlpool of politics, ambition, and neglect? Modern historians like James Kirby Martin have suggested that Arnold may have been a victim of wounded blind loyalty. When both sides turned their backs on him, he turned his back on both. The strangest tale, recorded by a nurse in his final days in London, claimed Arnold mumbled in his sleep, "Bring me my American uniform. I only wish to die as an American soldier." Perhaps just a legend, but if true, then his heart never left America, even if his body did.
London, late 18th century. In a modest room on Gloucester Street, an old man lay motionless on a bed, surrounded only by a few books, an old sword, and a faded portrait. That man had once commanded the admiration of an entire continent, only to later become the object of scorn for a fledgling nation. His name was Benedict Arnold. His life in exile was far from the grandeur people might imagine. Though once briefly esteemed by the British Crown, Arnold was gradually pushed to the margins. His pensions dwindled, business ventures failed, and his name was tarnished on both sides of the Atlantic. Many Britons held him in contempt. If he had once betrayed George Washington, a man he had called brother, who could trust that he would remain loyal to anyone? In his letters from the final years of life, Arnold's tone shifted from rage to sorrow. He wrote to his son, "They say your father is a traitor, but son, treason is not changing sides. It's when your heart no longer loves. And I have never stopped loving America." Those words were never officially published, perhaps because no one wanted to hear a defense from a man history had labeled a devil. In 1801, Benedict Arnold died in silence. No national flag draped his coffin, no military funeral, no words of remembrance from America, and no honors from Britain. Only a handful of relatives attended, and his gravestone bore no clear name. Years later, when a group of American tourists happened upon his grave in London, their guide whispered, "This is the resting place of the man you know only as the traitor." Yet history, even when written by the victors, cannot erase every detail. And in the decades after Arnold's death, a quiet wave of reevaluation began. Historians such as Willard Stern Randall and James Kirby Martin delved into letters, military records, and revolutionary documents. They found that Arnold may not have sold out ideals, but perhaps remained too loyal to the old ideals, unable to accept the corruption spreading through the young revolutionary government. Did he truly deserve the label of traitor, or was he merely the first and the most tragic to voice that the revolution had strayed from its original promise? George Washington never publicly cursed Arnold. In his final letter to Congress, he described Arnold's actions as a heartbreaking betrayal by one who was once deeply beloved. It was another way of expressing regret, not just for a man, but for an abandoned ideal. Today, in Arnold's hometown of Norwich, Connecticut, there stands a monument, but his name is absent. It is simply a bronze boot symbolizing the battles he won before his betrayal. An anonymous monument, as if America wishes to remember the glory, but dares not speak the hero's name. One last tale, part truth, part legend, says that as he lay dying, Arnold asked to wear once more the uniform of the Continental Army, the same he had worn in battles that shaped America's fate. And in that coat, he whispered, "Let me die as a soldier of freedom." If true, then perhaps the most reviled traitor in American history was also the last man who still believed in a decaying ideal. When history carves his name in disgrace, perhaps what is needed is not exoneration, but courage to look again. For if we only remember victories and forget the tragedies behind them, history will never truly be just.